Welcome to Ripple Effect Connection. I'm your host, Christy Hugic. It's the beginning of a brand new year, so today my good friend Megan Rupp of Primal Health Consulting joins me, along with a special guest, to dive into one of our favorite topics, movement and exercise. With a brand new slate of 365 days in front of us, we all know there are many of you saying, this is it, it's time to get in shape, it's time to get back in the gym. So we're going to do a couple of podcasts that help keep you in the gym and focused on movement beyond the month of January. We will explore how strength training can unlock the key to aging gracefully, staying active, and living a long, healthy life. But here's the thing about this episode. Although we've crafted this with the older generation in mind, whether you're in your 20s managing the demands of middle age or looking to maintain independence in later years, this episode is going to be packed with practical tips that can really be applied to anyone. Our guest, Mark Jesse, is a highly respected strength coach and personal trainer with over a decade of experience helping professional athletes and everyday individuals alike move better and get stronger. As the founder of Landshark Performance, Mark specializes in blending science-backed training methods with a compassionate, client-centered approach to meet people where they are on their fitness journey. Today, we'll discuss how much strength training you need for longevity, the best exercises to incorporate, and how movement profoundly and positively impacts your ability to live a vibrant and, more importantly, independent life. Here is our episode with Mark Jesse. This is a big day in Ripple Effect Connection podcast history because this is Mark Jesse's very first appearance. So, Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, Megan and I are not shy about talking about fitness, so we love that you're here and able to give us that ability to have a discussion as people are getting into the new year, wanting to start a new routine and maybe going about it the wrong way. But the very first thing I start with every guest I have is I ask you your why. So why did you get involved in training and why is this what you do every single day?
Yeah, so I took a bit of like a circuitous route to becoming a personal trainer, but I always knew I wanted to work in some kind of like sports related field or with people. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought for a while physical therapy was kind of like my path, and then quickly realized that wasn't going to be it. So I got into personal training and strength and conditioning, and honestly, I fell in love with it right away. Just like the feedback you get from clients, whether you're just helping somebody get up and down the stairs easier or, you're increasing somebody's performance, the reward is definitely what kind of keeps you coming back.
Yeah, and today we're gonna kind of talk about this in the realm of longevity. There are so many studies out there, study after study after study, that talks about just movement and exercise being keys to longevity, and how everyone goes about that is very different and bio-individual. So the message is usually a little bit different if you're 22 than when you're older, but there are some commonalities that also we can get into. But how does strength training play a role in like maintaining independence and quality of life as people get older?
Yeah, so like you said, there's a ton of studies out there that kind of show that as we age, we tend to lose strength, we lose power, and thus we start to lose flexibility. And so, strength training is a great way to maintain and kind of combat that aging of losing the strength and the mobility that comes along with it. And, I work with a handful of clients who are anywhere from 65 to 70 years old who, they follow a strength training program 2 to 3 days a week. And, they're able to go out and play tennis or, pickleball or run or whatever it may be that they do. But I think a large part of that is because of the way that they train and what they do in the weight room.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We think that as we get older, we lose the ability to do these things. But Mark, I think that you know this better than we do. It's that we stop doing those things and then we lose the ability to do that. Correct? It's kind of insane how that happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I've worked with clients who maybe have never touched a weight until they came in, and I can think firsthand of a woman who I have right now. She was like a yogi her whole life and never lifted weights. 65 years old, comes in, starts training, and now she's getting stronger. She's not out there lifting all the weights in the weight room, but she's doing what she needs to so she can, continue to do the things that she loves. And yeah, I mean, it's just super important. As you age, you keep moving. The problem is, you get older, you get more sedentary, and then, your physical abilities start to break down. So the best thing you can do to fight father time is just keep moving and stay active.
Awesome. Well, that brings me to my question. And I think about this a lot because we know the benefits there for this older population. But can you talk to us more about the biggest mistakes you see when someone starts beginning a strength training program at an older age, and if there's specific guidelines that you help your clients with who might get started a little bit later in life to prevent injury?
Yeah, I think, just a commonality amongst all people. And, I work with handful of physical therapists in the area that'll refer me clients, and majority of the people that come off of injury, the issue is that they do too much too soon. You go from sitting on the couch potentially or sitting at a desk all day, not doing much, and then all of a sudden you go into the gym, maybe you don't have any guidance and you're trying to lift more than you have ever in your life. And then all of a sudden you get hurt, right? You hurt your back or you hurt your shoulder or you hurt your knee. So for me, it's starting really slow. And in the beginning, it's brutally boring and elementary, but pounding in those foundational movements of squatting, of hinging, of different lunge variations, pulling, pushing, and then direct core work. I think doing those things and gradually building upon the foundational movements is what kind of helps people in long term build a strong foundation of strength and movement quality.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think that at a lot of ages, not just at the older population, but I mean, Mark, you and I have known each other since college. College kids can forget the foundation. They think because they're young and resilient, we'll say they're not going to get hurt. But I think it's at any age, if you don't develop this foundation, you're setting yourself up for injury, but especially the older population that you see as well. So yeah, that's a great point. And, tell us more about how the older population that they can achieve their goals. The new year is a time to better our goals, to get stronger, to achieve those goals. So tell us more how you would get your clients to better achieve those goals at an older age or an older population. How do you specifically work with these older clients to optimize the clock? I'm going to say optimize instead of beat the clock.
Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah. I always say that as the goal is like optimal health or optimization of, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. For me personally, so all of the clients that I work with in person, we do a full assessment. So we assess, range of motion. We ask them about previous injury history. We ask them about their training history. Have they had any experience in a weight room or in the gym? Whatever hobbies they may have, sports or in life. And then, we get into their goals. What is the main goal? Is it just to move better and feel good, or is it to lose 10 to 20 pounds? And then once we collect all that information, put together like an individualized program that's directed around their goals. And then it's just kind of, having them come in consistently, giving them some homework on the side, whether that's a mobility routine to follow, or just something as simple as like, hey, your goal for the week is to hit 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day. Get outside, go for a walk for 30 minutes. If it's too cold, go to the mall, go for a walk, whatever it may be. I think the biggest thing for that population is just staying active. Get your steps in, get 2 to 3 lifts in a week. And then, obviously nutrition is a key point. So eating healthy as best you can. If you do those 3 things, I think that over time, you're going to start to feel a lot better. You're going to move a lot better. And yeah, I mean, that'll lead to kind of that optimization, if you will.
I think that what happens is sometimes we don't understand as we age that sometimes we need to do certain things to keep doing what we love to do. So if, I see it all the time with my dad and his neighborhood, and they go out and all they do is play golf, but they don't really do anything. They're not home doing, the golf routines are very different. When someone's trying to play golf, you're going to do different exercises. If a client comes to you and says, and this is the benefit of going to a personal trainer, is someone's going to come to you and I'm going to say, Mark, I'd like to I play a lot of golf or I play a lot of pickleball. You're going to make a routine that helps them continue to be able to perform the sports that they love. So can you talk about that? Because I want you to give them a pep talk, because I've tried. They don't always listen to me. So I want them to listen to you and you talk about how important it is to cross train in order to be able to participate in something that you love to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always, talk to my clients. A lot of them are active, some active adults. Some who are maybe a little on the younger side are still running marathons. I have a woman who's a master's track athlete, and then a handful of people who play tennis and pickleball. And the biggest thing I say is, like, you need to be resilient. You need to be, as you age, you lose elasticity. Your body just doesn't produce as much collagen, so your tendons get stiffer, your muscles, as you weaken, get stiffer. So the biggest thing is training through full ranges of motion, working in, like, depending upon what you play. If it's golf, obviously rotation is the name of the game. So we need to work in, thoracic mobility, spinal movement. We need to work on your hips, making sure that they're mobile, so you're able to do the things you want to do on the golf course and kind of hit those shots that you want to hit. And then getting stronger in that as well. And then for somebody like in the pickleball or tennis realm, if you will, I think adding in very low level plyometrics. So something as easy as like jumping rope, right? I can't tell you how many people I hear all the time, like pickleball is huge in this area, like Achilles ruptures or calf strains. That's stuff that happens because you go from the couch and then you go into pickleball, you try to lunge or jump or run for a ball, and boom, you pop your Achilles or you strain a calf, whatever it may be. But I think some of that could be mitigated if you trained correctly. Like I said, low level plyometrics, whether it's jumping rope or, low level like lateral hops, things like that. You need to work on one leg, both legs. And then when it comes to like strength training, same thing, like working in split stance, doing lunges. Positions that you're going to get in the sport, you need to expose yourself to in the weight room, so that you're able to handle them when you come into competition.
I love that. That's such a good reminder to those who are listening to us, because, we think just go out and play your sport, do your sport, do your sport. But if you're not working on the other aspects of your body to help optimize that sport, you're A, going to get injured, or you're B, you're never going to get better at your sport. And why do your sport if you're not going to optimize the talents that you possess already? On that note, I always like to bring this up because this is for the younger athlete, the older athlete, or just the general person looking to get and stay in shape in the new year. We are exercising hopefully our entire lives. That's the goal. That's what we're saying here. If everyone's not understanding that, is keep exercising. But what do you bring to the table if your client is getting bored or unmotivated? Like, let's talk about that. Where do you see that intrinsic or extrinsic motivation, or how do you keep your clients engaged and challenged, especially the older generation who's been exercising for a while, probably?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of the we'll say like general fitness or aging athlete, if you will, it gets challenging for sure, in the sense that like they may not have the same goals as a high school athlete that I have, who's trying to put on, 10 to 15 pounds and increase their performance, right? They just want to be able to go on the weekends and play golf, or they want to be able to go out with their friends and play pickleball. So with that, I tend to run like 3 to 4 week programs. We'll change them up every 3 to 4 weeks. We'll adjust some of the exercises, whatever the weight selection is, the rep scheme, whatever it may be, and then constantly kind of like reassessing where they're at. Discussing, have their goals changed in the past couple of months? Are you enjoying what we're doing? Do you hate certain exercises? There's more than one way to do a lunge or a squat or a deadlift, right? So trying to figure out what they enjoy, and then, giving them, once we've been doing it for a little bit, I try to give them a bit of autonomy in discussing their program. And then just finding new ways to challenge them, whether it's, via conditioning, or some people want to do a pull-up. There's a lot of different ways to find ways to challenge somebody. It's just trying to figure it out. And then I think having appointments, Christy discussed, having a trainer, if you can afford it, I mean, that is motivation in and of itself, right? Like if you're training twice a week, you have those appointments on the book. It's a lot different when you have to cancel somebody, or you're maybe, you don't want to go that day, but if you don't, you're going to lose out on $100 or whatever the session costs you, right? So, I mean, that in and of itself is a bit motivating for people.
Yeah, and there's so much value in just knowing the right things to do and when to do them. And, we've discussed it in podcasts on this podcast before, in other episodes. We've discussed it. And I mean, I've seen the horror stories being a former personal trainer. I've been in the gym when someone's doing an exercise that they shouldn't be doing based on their body. And I think too, the older populations and even athletes to some extent now understanding better corrective exercise, meaning if there is an imbalance in your body and you're playing pickleball on it, or God forbid, my friends, the runners, they're running on it, you want to correct that so that you don't create something that does cause an injury, which then puts you out of it. And I'm always like, move it or lose it, people. Like literally, I can make it that simple. That's how I feel. I'm always like, I'm afraid to stop exercising because I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose it. So I'm always trying to move it. So let's just say the average person gets on here and they are older generation and they're looking to that we woke them up. And this is important in the scheme of not just playing pickleball, but avoiding things like sarcopenia, osteoporosis. So what are, a couple of specific, simple movements, maybe even with body weight, because we don't want someone to pick up a bunch of heavy weights unattended if you never have. So what are maybe some specific movements that would be good for them to kind of start with and do at home?
Yeah, I mean, just your basics, push-ups, whatever variation you're able to do. If you need to elevate your hands, as something as easy as like doing push-ups off the step or off a counter if it's stable. If you're unable to do them from the floor, squats, right? Like being able to squatting to a chair, getting out of a chair, something as basic as that can have benefits, and then if your knees can tolerate like lunging in different positions. I think these are all important things to do. I do think at some point, if you're just getting started, that'll work in the interim and in the beginning. But as you start to adapt to that, you need to increase the stimulus on your body. So that's where like adding weight comes into play, right? Because what you want to do are these compound movements, especially if you're talking about somebody who maybe has osteopenia or osteoporosis and their goal is to increase bone density. Well, we need to load the body so that the bones, can be stressed. And then when they're stressed, they respond to that stress to get stronger and get bigger. So that's where it kind of trends into, you need to lift some weights at that point. But in the beginning, I think body weight stuff like squats and lunges and push-ups are a good spot to kind of start. And then again, just getting out and going for walks. Even if you have a long driveway, go walk up and down your driveway, 10 times, get out 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. It can really add up.
Yeah, no, that's such a really good point. It's these basic movements that can be, we can trend them upwards or we can make them a little bit easier depending on where you're at, and you can progress them as you get stronger. And obviously, I know, Mark, that you are training clients both in person and virtually. So, I mean, this goes for the older population, but also all populations. Can you talk more about training someone virtually, maybe in their own home versus in the gym? Like, what do you notice as the big differences there? Because maybe I'm here and local to the Philadelphia area, and I'm like, oh, I want Mark to train me, but I can't decide virtual or in person. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in person, at the facility that I work at, we have pretty much all the equipment you would want to use. We have squat racks, we have dumbbells, we have cable machines. You name it, we pretty much have it at our disposal. So when you talk about, if somebody is working remotely, then maybe they don't have the same equipment that they do in a gym. Maybe they have one dumbbell and a few bands and, maybe a kettlebell or something like that. So then it just kind of depends upon what equipment you have at your disposal. If you have no equipment, then, I always recommend like you can go on Amazon and get a set of bands for $20, $30. And, those bands can range in resistance from 10 to 50 pounds. And, with those bands, you can do a lot of things. You can do rowing, you can do squatting, you can do hinging, whatever you want to do. And kind of accomplish with a set of bands, and that's going to be a lot cheaper than going out and maybe buying a set of like adjustable dumbbells that run from 5 to 50 pounds, right? So it kind of just depends upon what you have available to you, and then it just comes down to my creativity of like what I can accomplish with the equipment that you have at home.
I love that. There's so many ways you can do it. I did this really fun thing when I was bored during COVID about like finding 30 different ways to do a bicep curl, from changing the angle to changing, like doing it while lunging to doing it. Like there's so many ways that you can add a challenge from just a basic exercise. You start with a bicep curl. Well, we can change the angle. We can work every angle of that muscle, right? And we get to and that's what, again, what a trainer is really good at, that you're maybe the average person at home is not going to understand, that when we're doing bicep curls, there's a reason why you do a hammer curl versus just a regular curl. There's a reason why you do, when you angle it out, it's actually, I'm trying to think to my head how to describe it if people are not watching visually. If you're angling your bicep curl out. So there's so many ways to challenge yourself, but that's why I think it's just anybody could benefit from some time with a personal trainer. But I think the other person that I want to speak to is maybe the people that Megan and I see also as patients at the clinic or personal clients. We have, I'm thinking of a couple in particular, who are dealing with chronic pain, and they fight the battle of they're not moving enough and they have chronic pain, or do they have chronic pain because they're not moving enough, and vice versa. So how do you help them bridge that gap and instruct them to be able to begin to move their body?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a tough one, right? I have a client right now that I train who, she's had like neck surgery. She's kind of always in chronic pain. So there's obviously like good days and bad days in that pain cycle, if you will. So in the good days, you try to, maximize what you can do on those good days. And on the bad days, you just try to move through whatever is going to be pain-free or relatively low on the pain scale that day. So that one's tough because it really depends upon like, what are we talking? Is it the knee? Is it the shoulder? Is it a spinal injury? Where does the pain lie? And then how do we work around, I'm big on like, we can work around pain. I work a lot with baseball players and, they have arm injuries. It's like, all right, well, we can still train your legs if your arm hurts. There's more than one way to do that. Or we can do opposite side, the non-injured side, we can work that side. There's studies that show that helps, the injured side. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to kind of work around the pain, I say. I'm not a huge fan of like just trying to grind through the pain because, when you think of like the pain cycle, if you're in an inflammatory response, then it's kind of the worst thing you can do is just keep pushing through that inflammatory response because you're never going to get out of it.
Yeah, it's a tough balancing act, right? It's always, I think we're always kind of leaning toward, look, whatever you can do that doesn't create pain, let's just find some way to move. Let's just find some way, to move. And it is so important. So, we're going to have you back for another episode. But before we do, just in case someone listens to these individual episodes, Mark, can you let people know how they can connect with you if maybe they want to get a session with you virtually or maybe near where you are in person? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I train out of a facility in Berwyn, PA. And then, you guys can go to my website. It's landsharkperformance.co. So not .com, just .co. We're on Instagram. So my personal one's Mark Jesse Training. My business one is @landsharkperformance. And then, email address is info@landsharkperformance.co. So those are probably the easiest ways to get a hold of me. And, I'm always happy to help. So feel free to reach out.
Perfect. We love it. Well, we know those of you that are listening to this episode, you're going to get another dose of Mark's wisdom. And I want everyone to know that even if you're listening to this podcast and you're not of the age group that we're talking about, there's a lot of things that still apply across the board. So yes, we want people to understand this is part of longevity, but there's a lot of tips that Mark has given in here that will apply to any age group. And then we're going to deal with all of you in the other age group in the next podcast. So thanks, Mark. We'll be back soon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to connect with any of us on social media and let us know what resonated with you. Full show notes can be found at christyhugic.com/podcast. We hope this episode shed some light on just how important movement and exercise is to longevity. Be sure to stay tuned for our next episode to learn the biggest reason why other fitness plans have failed. Please take a second to like, follow, review, and share this podcast with anyone who might benefit. And if you can leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts, it really helps me bring more amazing guests your way. Stay tuned for the next episode of Ripple Effect Connection. Let's create waves of change together.